This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I do not call you servants any longer, because the servant does not know what the master is doing, but I have called you friends because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father. You did not choose me, but I chose you. And I appointed you to go and bear fruit that will last, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask him in my name. I am giving you these commands so that you might love one another. The wisdom of God. Well, you know what? I have 681 Facebook friends. Can you believe it? I am so proud. I know that there are others, I've seen them, particularly younger people who have well over 1,000 Facebook friends, but I doubt that they have ever called them. Of course, I could do that because occasionally I look through my friends and I come across people that I don't recognize anymore. You know, they say that a single person can't know more than 300 people. After that, we just can't do it. I think we can all agree that a Facebook friend is quite different than an authentic friend, and the Facebook uses the word friend. It has come to cheapen the meaning of what a friend is. I've always been taken a little back in John when he mentions friends. Friends. It's philos in Greek. You know that in Greek there are 3 words for love. There is agape, that is sacrificial love, eros, which is passionate love, and philos. This is the one of the love between friends. It sounds to us like it's simpler, but it is not. It is also, along with agape and eros, very grave. The word that has always seemed to describe the relationship we have with Jesus is to be servant. Why add friends? You know that most Americans, the minute you say friends, are thinking of 6 young, self-absorbed people living in New York in the 80s. It's the 80s or is it the 90s? I can't even remember. Obviously, John is not referring to anything like those friends. So what's he mean when he says friends? I glean 3 things when I look at the text that tells us some description of what he means by friend. First, I do not call you servants any longer, because servants do not know what the master is doing. So a friend is someone who knows something others do not. The word know here is a little suspect. Usually when I read know in the Bible, I think of the Greek word for gnosis, where Gnosticism come from, and it's a more secretive knowledge. But John doesn't use that word. The word he uses is eido, which means to perceive and to see. Not to know as if it's a content, but it's about how one sees. That means the lens through which one is seeing the world. We've talked about lenses before, haven't we? A framework or a formula that we see through that shapes what we see and how we see it. Lenses can be constructive and they can be destructive. They can promote understanding or they can simply be a conspiracy theory. White nationalism is a lens. Biblical fundamentalism is a very conservative lens. Unfortunately, I often think that the biggest lens in America is money. It's common but dubious. And if we look through the lens of money, everything has a price tag. even your children, and that's a big one. There are more positive lenses to see reality through: love, compassion, sacrifice, service, justice, moral integrity. One of the problems I look and I see politics is the lens through which people are seen is not anything close to moral integrity or the common good. It's all about themselves. Clearly, it's almost admitted that the lens through which people in Congress see the world is, will I be reelected? Will I be reelected? This is what Donald Trump has left for us. With Donald Trump, everybody knows what his lens through which he sees the world is, right? If you were all here gathered with me, you would tell me it's narcissism. He sees reality through the lens of what will benefit him. The first criterion for friends in John is about perception. It is, in its context, specifically that when we see Jesus through a right lens so that we really see who Jesus is. And when we really see who Jesus is, we will give our hearts to him. And when we give our hearts to him, we will obey him. Obey? Did you hear that? We have to obey. That's not good for us. Culturally, it's counterintuitive. We assume in our lives that we have the power to choose whatever we want. We have personal liberties. We assume that freedom to make the choice to follow Jesus, but the text says otherwise. You did not choose me, I chose you. Discipleship is more about obedience than it is personal liberties. First, a friend is one who perceives truthfully, genuinely, and with love and grace. The second, friendship implies the disciples are lifted up to the point where they seem as though they're equal with Jesus. The relationship described is one of connection. And as I said last week, it's about abiding in each other with internal connectiveness. And they're so intertwined that they become equal. A servant is never equal to the master. Can there be friendships in a situation where there is a power imbalance? This is important for us in the church, specifically regarding me. I think you know that we pastors have been informed that we cannot be friends with church members. And in one church, it became a huge conflict because people felt slighted because there is a power imbalance between pastors and parishioners. The boundary has been stressed recently in the wake of clergy sexual misconduct. And as a result, the bishop, the superintendent, and every mental health professional that I know would say no. Pastors can't be friends with parishioners. In my mind, it's a relative thing about people and circumstances, and I would keep before myself in every relationship, do no harm. Can children be friends with their parents? As parents, we get very close with our children, but there's always a time when we're filtering. I've shared much with my children, and they become somebody I talk with all the time, but then when they have a problem, I'm not their friend anymore, I'm their dad. When I first went to Tokyo as an exchange student, we prided ourselves that we would call our professors by their first name. Does anybody remember that? Japanese were incredulous. How can we do that? And they said, Americans are so cool. No, Americans are really stupid. As much as we may feel that we're equal with our professors, we simply are not. The equality that is implied in John is not about knowledge. It's about connection and a deep spiritual abiding in each other. First, there is right perception, which is the first of Buddhism's eightfold noble path, in case you wanted to know. Right view, right perception. The second for us is equality, and the third is sacrifice. The third criterion for friendship is the willingness to die for another. I can tell you, I felt this passionately when Kenneth died. I would have done anything to take his place. I would do it now. When we think about this, usually we think about persons being plucked from the river. But I think we can view this more broadly. Anytime we work for justice and confront the powers, we face the possibility of losing our lives. Not only that, but when we love, when we truly love, we bring into relationship the possibility of sacrificing ourselves for others. Okay, time for a movie. How many of you have seen Gran Torino? I'm hoping a lot of you have seen Gran Torino. About a retired auto worker, widowed Walter Kowalski, who faithfully mows his lawn, seems like he was mowing it a lot, and sits on his porch and grabs Pabst beer out of a cooler. Did I say that right? Pabst beer out of a cooler. And things are changing in his neighborhood, and there is a Hmong family living next door. Big, multi-generational family. They're loud. They're different. So much so that Walt just cannot see them. His lens for seeing was grown out of the American dream. Hard work leads to entitlement for certain people in America. But these folks are usurpers. They just arrived. They haven't put in their time. They're taking jobs from true Americans. I think Walt could have been a Trumper. Walt complains about the Hmong, and he sees himself as the victim. Then the Hmong gang drives by and shoots up the neighbor's home because Tao, the son in the family, had failed in his initiation into the gang. He was supposed to steal Walt's cherished Gran Torino, but he got caught. And after that, he refused all enticements from the gang, so they shot up his house. Walt takes Tao under his wing as he works off his sins in Walt's yard, and Walt's lens begins to change. He begins to see the Hmong neighbors as victims too, not usurpers, but he sees, experiences, and feels that they suffer too. Then the neighbor daughter, Sue, is violently raped and abused by the gang, and Walt is incensed. He becomes their champion. As he becomes their champion, he kind of becomes a part of them and becomes more equal with them. He's invited to dinner. One of my favorite scenes in the movie, huge amounts of food, and he's wandering around amongst them, and you get the sense that he's okay. And he feels a part of them. By the end of the movie, he ends up sacrificing his life for his Hmong friends. For those details, watch the movie. John's use of the word friends is not a simple matter. It's a deep thing. It's not Facebook friends, and it's not the TV show Friends. It implies a serious way of living and relating to others. It requires perceiving reality with an open, unbiased perspective generated by love and compassion and forgiveness. It requires equality And it means that loving, when you love so much, there's a willingness to die for another. This is not simple. This has become very rare. This kind of friendship takes much more than hitting the like button on Facebook. It requires effort and patience and listening and willingness to question and to doubt. It means investing in others, and it will mean suffering. In honors of Mother's Day, I guess I will say that I believe that women are better at this. Or maybe just more equipped, better equipped to create these kinds of philos friendships. While the men are out hunting the mammoth, what are the women doing? They're all back at the cave. What are they doing when they're back at the cave? They're talking. As an equal partner in caring for our children when they were growing up, I learned some things looking after small children. I bathed them, I fed them, I changed their diapers, and I took them to the playground. When you're at the playground, there's a whole lot of dead time. Dead time with children running around and lots of parents, almost always women, and they would talk and I would listen. I didn't know I would get to hear so many birth stories. I'm not sure I really wanted to hear all the birth stories. While they're still in their hearts tethered to their children, they are sharing vulnerabilities and sufferings, and relationships develop, and Dad's back in the office trying to hunt down a file he lost. Last week I mentioned collecting people. This, I believe, is an example of collecting people. It's a ministry of friendship. In my life, I invested in my family in the church. I don't regret my choices I made to invest where I did, in spite of all that has happened. What I regret is that I never felt I had the time to invest in my friends, even the ones that I had. I don't think I'm alone in this. Becoming so busy that there's simply no energy to invest as one must in another person. And I wish I had more time hanging out with other parents at the playground. Recently, I have connected with a couple of friends from seminary and a cousin who I had lost touch with. They all live in LA, Mexico, and New York, respectively. My cousin was prompted by my reaching out to her to tell me a number of experiences from her past. One was that in high school in rural North Carolina, she went to a school that was 80% African-American because of white flight to the private school. And she had to go to the public schools because her father was on the school board. And she shared about her experiences. Another one of my friends, I discovered that he lost a stepson. This third friend has become a grief counselor in the largest mortuary business in Los Angeles called Forest Lawn. We had plenty to talk about. Stories shared, connections nurtured, sufferings witnessed. I feel regret, I'll tell you, at not keeping up with these relationships through the years. But now is now. At the end of one of my friend's letters, he said, "My friend and my brother for life." Philos, friendship, does not mean acquaintance. It's not Facebook friends. It's far more deep. It's about connection. It's about having the right perception, being equal, and loving so much that we would be willing to sacrifice. These are the things we look for in our ministry of friendship, hoping that we can all become brothers and sisters for life. And now, Mark, if you'll put up that slide. To guide you in discerning what is a Facebook friend and what is a Philos friend. Facebook friends are casual, Philos friends are connected. Facebook friends, you can have more than 1,000, but Philos friends are few. Facebook friends are really shallow. Philos friends are deep. Facebook friends are fundamentally untrustworthy. Philos friends are dependable. Facebook friends can unfriend you anytime, they're fickle. Philos friends are loyal. A lot of what Facebook is about is entertainment. Philos ultimately is about seeking wisdom in a relationship. Facebook friends are morally porous. Philos friends are morally integrated. Facebook friends are essentially self-focused. Philos friends are outwardly focused. Praise be to God. Amen.